Well, second recording of windshield time, and today I had the same problem as I did yesterday. Is I had a store that they're having a problem attracting talent, and it was interesting to me that again the same gap was there. There's the millennials, the Gen Ys, and then the baby boomers. And there was no Gen X's there. None. So it even more lends to my theory that we're seeing there's just such a exodus from the car business for Generation X. I think it's really it's definitely causing a problem at this store where they already have a problem at the store just with regards to sales and keeping qualified staff there, just because the area it's in, it's a tough area. But not being able to draw upon that pool of Generation X, I think I think this store, because of the size of the store, the size of the PMA, it's feeling the effects of that much more dramatically than would a larger store. But I definitely see that the same issues. They just don't have anybody qualified to go into that next step. They don't have anybody at that mid-level management that they can move up into general manager, general sales manager in an appropriate fashion. And we were talking about other stores, the general manager of this store and I were talking about other stores where they've moved people up that had no business being moved up, but for lack of choices, they had to move them up. It was either move that completely inappropriate choice up to general manager or not have one. And frankly, I think I'd almost rather not have one. The choice of in that particular situation we were talking about. But anyway, it's the problem of not having Generation X or such low numbers of Generation X in the car business it's not going to get better. It's the talented ones that we did have, they're flying the coop too. They're not getting the pay plans they want, the treatment they want, whatever you want to say. So they're leaving too. So it's definitely a grander problem that needs to be addressed. I don't know that I have I don't know if I have any answers for that. Because I think it's a lot more than we need to make a better pay plan and need to make a better plan for loyalty of that particular employee. It's beyond that, and this is what I was talking about yesterday. And as the dealer profitability has gone down, they've had to make some really tough decisions, and some decisions have been made for them without their choice, without their option. But I really think this gap, this generation gap that we have in the car business not being filled with Gen Xers. I have a lot of friends in my age group that were in the car business that have gotten out because of the harsh treatment, the lack of loyalty, the lack of any kind of paying value, and frankly, the skills are just useful to take elsewhere. And that's by and large what the majority of people I know who were the same age as I am, that's what they've done. They're just simply not in the car business. I mean, with good reason. I can't fault them. It definitely speaks to a broader problem within the automotive industry about treatment of the employees and the turnover. I know it's a dirty word with our industry, turnover, but I mean, we have to address it. We have to speak to it. Nobody talks about working at a car dealership in a good light. You know, it's always been something to be made fun of, or something to, you know, deriding someone for working in the car business. It's a job. It's a job like any other job. How much pride you take in your work, I mean, that's on you. How much passion you have in your work, that's on you. So deriding someone for their job is the same as making fun of someone for being fat or being gay, in my opinion. I just think it's, maybe that's definitely extreme, because I know there's a lot more to violence that goes with those two options. But all I'm saying is, I don't think that it should be looked on as a negative. And I get it. There's plenty of people out there who perpetuate that vision of the average used car salesman is just a piece of shit. And believe me, I meet them. And I'm always saying to myself, yep, that's the reason people think about car salesmen the way they do every time I meet someone like that. But what I can tell you is that kind of thinking and that kind of salesperson, that, generally speaking, is very secluded to the baby boomer age bracket. So I'm highly confident that once they age out of those positions, retirement, or, I hate saying that, but, you know, it happens, illness or death or, you know, what have you, once they are aging out of that upper level management position, I really think we're going to see new breath into that, the car dealership world. And it unfortunately isn't going to be brought out by the Gen Xers. So we are gapped in a whole generation because we just don't have a presence in the car business in any kind of force or numbers. So who's going to bring that new breath and that new idea of the today's car salesman is going to be Gen Y and the millennial, because they have to. If we want to keep the car business alive, that's what it's going to have to boil down to. So I have, you know, star standouts in millennials and Gen Ys that I could see them being general managers. I could see them taking over those upper level manager ownership positions from the baby boomers. But it's going to take time. I think we're going to see an extension on the retirement age of the baby boomer for that reason, because they're waiting for the Gen Ys and the millennials to come up into it. But the changing movement of how people buy cars, I think that's been done by millennials and Gen Y. I think the changing movement of, but people forget that the Generation X, we started that. I mean, we initiated that. It's Gen Y and millennials that are carrying it through to the goal line, because there's nobody left in the car business in my age. Like I said, I keep saying it, age bracket. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but the amount of time that I spent explaining to a store, well, how are we doing on this? How are we doing on, you know, digital? Yeah, that sucks. And, well, we have a problem finding people here. Okay. And I get it. There's some areas that are more difficult than others. Rural New Mexico, yeah, that's a difficult place to find good, qualified, experienced salespeople. And they're there. I see them. I have some of my best salespeople at some of my little rural stores. But you're not going to get a team of 10 solid Gen X, good, experienced car guys there. You're just not. The best plan that you can do is take your Gen Ys and your millennials and offer them the amount of training and get them the amount of experience they need as quickly as possible to take over those upper management roles, because that's all you got. So if you have someone in that 35 and below or 34 and below age bracket that's ready, willing, and able, and they have that passion, I would be sending them to every single certification, qualification, training course possible for my OEM contacts, because I think that at the end of the day, that's going to be all you have. I really, I feel strongly about that gap, but it's more and more prevalent every time I visit a store. It's more and more prevalent. It's more and more glaringly obvious of what the issue is to me. And I wonder, I mean, like I said, it starts with the dealer profitability, and we have to work our way backwards from there. But, and I hate to say this, I guess that if we're not going to attract that business back if we can't get out of our own way. Hold on a second. I have to reset my... The trials of trying to shoot a video blog while driving. I wonder if we can... This definitely the course for more action is definitely needed. So, interesting. So I can end episode 1 there. I'm sorry, end episode 2 there. Or episode 1. I mean, potato. I talked about the same thing I talked about yesterday, so maybe I should have it. Episode 1 about the generation gap and employee turnover. But to make your store, so I guess if we jump into another episode where we're gonna talk about the problems of car dealerships, I mean, employee turnover is definitely an issue. Every time a manager leaves a store, they take their team with them. And if that's happened to you, I mean, it'll happen once or twice. Managers always tout the place that they're going, that the grass is always greener over here, and everybody should follow me. And you'll get some trickle backs, some people who just realize, okay, grass wasn't greener, I'm going to go back. But how do we prevent that altogether? And I think that by making your employees unpoachable, because this is the biggest problem I have when I tell stores, hey, why don't we have anybody on your staff page on the website? We don't even have a team page. Well, we're too afraid that, our guys are going to get poached. Why don't you make them unpoachable instead of putting so much time and effort into making sure nobody finds out about them? Why don't you just make sure they're unpoachable? And I'm not saying you have to pay them the most amount of money of anybody ever, but I am saying that you do need to treat them right. And you need to cultivate the relationship, and you need to make sure you know what drives them. One of the best owners I ever worked for, and I say owners because the managers were when I worked there, but the owner could go up to anybody in the dealership and knew their kids' names, how old their kids were. And this is in addition to knowing like how many sales he made or how much in sales that particular salesperson or anybody made, service advisor made for them. So he would always greet me by name, never acted like he didn't know me, would always follow it up with, how's your daughter, by name. And it was always impressive to me that he knew all that he could remember all that for the 150 odd people he had working at the store. I don't know how exactly many it is, I'm guessing, that he would do that with everyone. But it gave me this sense, a stronger sense of loyalty to him than I think almost any other owner that I've ever worked for, because he took that time to understand what drives me, and he knew that what drove me was my daughter and making sure I made enough money to care for myself and my daughter. So that simple fact there made me work through a lot more and stay there longer probably than I should have. And ultimately why I left is, that's a story for another day. But it wasn't that decision, even that decision, as grave as it was, and it had to happen, it wasn't taken lightly. It's just because I got no real support on the situation is why, and it was going to be a dangerous situation for me to stay. So anyway, like I said, that's a story for another day. But even then, so and I just don't see that now. I see it very, I shouldn't say that I don't see it at all. I see it very sparingly. There's not a whole lot of devotion to a corporate store. There just really isn't. And I think it's hard. The corporate culture, corporate ownership of stores makes it hard to have some kind of loyalty to the organization. It really does. So I've worked for a corporate group before, and that feeling of just being a number and nobody really giving a shit whether you were there today or not, I get that feeling. I've had that feeling. I've worked with that feeling. But it had me looking out the door. It had me looking for somewhere where I felt valued and appreciated. But I think in a corporate situation, I don't think it would be that much more difficult to make those employees feel valued and appreciated as they do in a onesie-twosie type of store or an owner. I just think we're not doing it. I don't know if it's because we've got our attention and focus everywhere else, or so many more places, that we just feel, and that's deprioritized. But I honestly feel like there's you can definitely do it in a corporate situation, and like I said, it's just not being done. And I felt that way myself working for a corporate group, and really, in fact, for the couple of corporate groups that I've worked for, I've had that feeling of just not really mattering in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's pretty crucial when you want to talk about employee loyalty, that they feel like they matter, like they feel like their presence is important as a cog in the wheel of the business. And I think that's really where, as far as automotive dealerships, the corporate-owned stores really, really lag, at least in my personal experience. So I think there's more that can be done without spending more money to take the time to figure out what moves and drives your people and to appreciate them, that I just don't think we're doing anymore. And with the onset of digital becoming so important to the marketing plan of any automotive dealership, I think that's why it's been deprioritized, because there's been so much focus on that. So if I had any takeaways from today's windshield time, I think that the most important thing would be is to don't just walk by an employee, or don't just never visit a store if you're in a corporate group. If you're in a higher manager position in a corporate group, take the time to visit the guys at the entry level. I'm absolutely 100% serious. Take the time to visit that little store out in rural Arizona, in the up and coming suburbs. Take the time to walk through that store, meet and shake everybody's hand that works there, from the porter who gets the lot ready in the morning to the general manager, and hear their story. If everybody did that, if everybody took a day, a couple of days a month, not even a week, just like 2 days a month, and made a point to visit all their stores, one of the highest people in the company made a point to do that, I think we would see a tremendous turn in the tide on loyalty to some of these stores. I think the attrition rate would fall, and I think we would see unpoachable employees. So that's my challenge for today. If you're at a corporate store and you're a manager, or you're a VP or the president or whatever you want to call it, take the time to go meet employees in your store. Take the time to go meet employees in your group or in your corporation. Fly somewhere and go meet. Take 2 days and meet a couple of people. Meet as many people as you can meet that day. And I'm telling you, the employee performance, the loyalty, the attrition rate, all of those things will change by you making that time. And I understand that time's out of office. I could be doing so many more things, but I'm telling you right now, nothing is more important when you're trying to get a successful business off the ground than the employees that you rely on every day to get that business off the ground. And if you start abandoning them or not communicating with them, not interacting with them to the point where they feel abandoned, then they're going to be treated like they were abandoned, which means they're going to leave and they're not going to say a word to you. So that's my challenge for today's windshield time. Great selling, everybody. Thanks for joining.